Hello and welcome to the Paul Green Comedy PaulCast. This is for December 21st, 2024. This is episode 359. Oh, man. This is stand-up comedian, actor, improviser, and dreamer Paul Green sharing my journey and wrapping up my 365 daily podcast episode goal that I set for myself this last year. And we are down to the final countdown. 6 episodes left to wrap up this 1-year series of daily podcasts. And then I get to re-strategize, reanalyze, and determine what I want to do with this podcast for 2025. I'm not saying I'm going away. It probably won't be daily. That was a little much for everyone involved. When that reminds me, when I first started doing this daily podcast back in 2023, I started November 30th of 2023. And I just started popping out daily episodes. Didn't know what the heck I was doing. I had a kind of a different format on the videos I was posting on YouTube at that time. And a couple weeks in, I'm at the gym. I'm at LA Fitness doing a workout, and I run into an old buddy of mine. Good old Morgan. Hadn't seen him in probably, 10, 12 years. Definitely hadn't seen him since I had moved to Los Angeles back in 2015. And I run into him, and we're kind of catching up, and he goes, "Oh, hey, I saw you're getting your podcast." And he goes, I want to listen, but then I saw you were doing it daily, and I'm like, I just can't keep up with that. He's like, have you thought about maybe doing it weekly or whatever? But at that point, I was determined. I was like, I'm actually not going to take any feedback from anybody. Like, I am doing it this way, and I'm just going to do it. I have my own reasons. I have my own goals. And anybody who chooses to listen to it, that's a bonus. And, which is weird because I'm usually not like that. I'm usually, a pretty significant people pleaser. And so when he was like, do it weekly, like my initial instinct was like, okay, I'll do whatever you want. Whatever will make everybody else happy. But I didn't. I did not take any advice from anybody. I did it my way. Kind of. So that has been that's been the goal. That's been the journey for this last year. Wrapping up here. 6 more episodes of the daily Paul Green Comedy Podcast. And then we'll see. We'll see what sort of format this takes moving forward, what I want the focus to be, if I want it to be really more focused on comedy, if I want it more focused on pursuing dreams. That was actually really what I wanted to focus on, was this whole element of going for your dreams in life, not necessarily being a stand-up comedian. Obviously, dreaming is a little more broad of a topic than stand-up comedy specifically. It just happens to be that stand-up comedy is what I'm pursuing most aggressively. And so that by default is the lens through which I'm viewing pursuing dreams and what it takes to hone a stand-up comedy craft and a career and all of the ups and downs with trying to get good at comedy. But, I've had a handful of guests on I haven't had a ton. I've maybe had what, 7 or 8 guests that I've talked to about their dreams, and not all of them were comics. The majority of them were comics. Um, I had my buddy Jim Perry. He's a comic. My buddy Jace Clay. He was my first ever guest. I talked to Ezra Stormont, stand-up comic. Josh Noby is a stand-up comic. But then I had a couple non-comics. A woman named Sarah Williams, who's um, well, I did meet her at an open mic. She had started doing comedy, but she's not. This is gonna sound funny. She's not much of a comic. Sarah, if you're listening, I'm so sorry. She's actually quit comedy since, but she's like an entrepreneur type um, and just a big time dreamer. She's kind of crazy in a good way. She runs Arizona Goat Yoga, and she's been on like tons of reality TV shows. And yeah, she's just a wheeler and dealer out there moving and shaking all the time. So I had her, and then I had Kylie Barber, who is a politician. She's trying to get into politics, and she actually had her first election just this last election cycle, and she lost. She did not get elected, but it was really interesting talking to her because this political thing just kind of came out of nowhere for her, and she just felt an inspiration to get into politics, and that became her dream. And I actually talked to her after she lost the election just to check in and see how she's doing, because she put in so much work. And I'm trying to think of what the numbers were. It was something like she got like 17,000 votes, and she lost by like 1,000 votes. And it was a very competitive election. It was like some district or House of Representatives for Arizona, not federal, not for the United States House of Representatives, but the House in Arizona. And still very competitive race, and that's what she sunk her heart into and lost. And so I just wanted to have a conversation with her and just see how she was taking that loss, how she was processing it. And it's just so interesting because now that's her journey. That's her struggle of like, oh, I'm in politics now. And being in politics means you work your butt off for an election and you can still not get elected. And then you got to figure out what's next. So anyway, so I had her on the show, and then I had my very dear friend, Elizabeth Barrett Pitt. And if you haven't seen that interview, I would go back and watch that one because she is just this force to be reckoned with. And I first met Elizabeth when I was working for a company called Infusionsoft. I worked for them from 2014 until 2019. And Elizabeth was in the C-suite. She was, what was her title? I think it was Chief Personnel Officer, Chief Persons Officer, Chief People Officer. I feel like it was something to do with people. um, and she's just a fascinating human being. She just knew that she wanted to be in business, and she just wanted to rise to the top ranks of business ever since she was young. And so she, just worked her arse off in high school, got into one of the top business schools, got like her MBA, and then got hired on by one of the top, I think, accounting firms as a consultant. Oh my gosh, I hope I'm not messing up her some of the details here. Anyway, go watch the interview. She tells the story. But when she ended up getting hired, so she's like she's like in the top brass of this software company. And I was just a lowly employee, um, hacking away at my day job. And at the time, Infusionsoft had this huge part of its culture, which was they wanted to support their employees in their dreams. That was really where I first started to hear this idea of actually going for your dreams and not just sort of talking about it, but actually saying, like, what is it that I want to go for? And, like writing it down, declaring it, and doing all of that sort of self-help stuff associated with going for your dreams, your vision board, your journals, and then just taking action step after action step after action step to move towards that dream, whatever it is. And it was because of Elizabeth, who was such a strong, it's not like she believed it. It was like she lived it. She didn't do lip service to this idea of like, oh, we're going to support our employees in going for their dreams. She's like, oh, no, I embody this. I do it in my own life, and I am going to go out of my way to do what I can to support our employees. So I've told the story many times, but the brief recap is, I was living in Arizona. I had been doing stand-up comedy all of about a year, and I had done improv comedy for about 7 years. And I'm like in my early 30s. And it's like, in all practical reality, if I wanted to go for my dreams to become a famous comedian and actor, I needed to start that journey when I was like 15. I needed to move to LA when I was 17, and, hustle and grind and build a career and get my big break by the time I'm like 20. It's like, that's how it has to happen. And it's like, I'm in my early 30s. I have barely done stand-up. It's like I have like 7 minutes of stand-up comedy, which was barely even good. And I have like 7 years of short-form improv experience. I have no acting credits. I've never taken an acting class. I've never been in a movie or a TV show or nothing. And yet my dream was and always has been to like get on a sitcom. And so I start talking. So they had another person at Infusionsoft named Dan Rouse, who was literally called their dream manager. So it's like I have Dan Rouse, the dream manager, and Elizabeth Pitt, the chief persons officer, who are like dedicated. They're dedicated to supporting employees in their dreams. And next thing I know, because of Dan Rouse and Elizabeth Pitt, after like 6 months of working with them and because of their influence in the company, the company let me work remotely so I could move to LA and start pursuing my dreams as an actor when I was 33 or 34 years old. So anyway, I have interviewed both of them actually on my podcast. So I interviewed Dan Rouse and I interviewed Elizabeth Pitt, and those interviews were so great to be able to just talk to them about what a profound influence they both had on my life and on my dreams and on me pursuing my journey. And then I also talked to Danielle Williams, who is this incredible stand-up comedian, and she's a cancer survivor. And so, so she's an activist and an advocate and like a public speaker and just incredibly high energy, incredibly positive, just a beautiful human being. So it's been really fun. So I don't know, everybody. I just need to really get clear. By that, I mean join Scientology. And did I already do that joke? I feel like I said that exact joke. I'm repeating myself, everybody. Need to get new material. Because I don't know, maybe moving forward, I'll maybe focus more on the interview side of things. I don't know. A lot to think about. So, um, but I've got a couple of weeks here. So the last episode of the daily podcast is going to be, what will that be? Probably Friday. So it's Saturday. So with that, Sunday will be, so the 22nd will be 360, 361, 362, 263. See, yeah, I think that'll be the 26th or the 27th. So with that, I have officially performed my last show for 2024, unless something random comes up, unless, I book like a last minute New Year's Eve gig or something, which is totally possible. Just kind of weird. I usually am booked on New Year's Eve. Matter of fact, last year I did probably the worst show of my life on New Year's Eve. I don't know if any of you all remember that story. Last year on New Year's Eve, I got booked to perform at the Narcotics Anonymous New Year's Eve party in San Diego, California. And that did not go well. I actually got booed. It's one of the very few times in my and when I mean booed, I mean like not like a playful ribbing booing, like a booing as in we don't like you. And we're not we don't want you here. Why are you here? And why are you talking to us on our New Year's Eve party? We would much rather be doing just about anything else. And so I got booed then. And then I got booed in 2016 at the Green family reunion. Oh, yeah. My entire family and extended family booed me. Now, truthfully, they were doing it a little bit more playfully, kind of, brothers, ribbing brothers, but I still did not like that. They, I was emceeing the talent show of the Green family, and by the way, this is like extended Green family. I only knew probably half of the people in the room. There was like 150, 200 family, because it was like my grandparents' brothers and sisters' families as well. And, I'd never met a lot of those people. It's like I knew my grandparents and my aunts and uncles and all of their kids, like all of my first cousins. But these are like second, third cousins and second uncles twice removed, all of that stuff. And we had this big, gigantic talent show, and I was a kind of a brand new comedian, and I was like, oh yeah, I'll MC this. And so I MC'd it, and I did some stand-up comedy, and it was all newer material. And I think I remember the joke. All right. I'm going to do my best to see if I can remember this joke that I told that my own family, my own flesh and blood booed me. And the joke was something like, when I got out of college, I started driving school bus, and the first route they put me on was driving the short bus and picking up all of the kids who were in wheelchairs. So I remember showing up to that first house, and I see this student in a wheelchair, and I just thought, oh, wait, he already has transportation. So I just drove away. Come on. That's not funny. So anyway, I said that, and they booed because, I think in their mind, they thought I was making fun of handicapped people, which I was actually not making fun of handicapped people. I was actually suggesting that handicapped people are every bit as capable, and they don't need help. They can do it themselves. Anyway. So they booed me. how did I get on the booing? Oh yeah, that's because a year ago, New Year's Eve, I got booed. So that was a bad gig. Um, but yeah, for the rest of the year, no gigs lined up. And I just finished a weekend of shows. So last night I was in Yuma, Arizona, um, with the Midlife Crisis Comedy Show. Me and Josh Noby drove down there. We booked their large theater, the Yuma Historic Theater, and had an amazing turnout. We had probably close to 300 people. We advertised the heck out of that show, spent a lot of money on Facebook ads just because the people in Yuma, they come out. There's all these snowbirds. Like the average age is probably 60. It's a lot of retirees, a lot of snowbirds. And yeah, that felt really good. It felt really good to get finally just like a big turnout. This is the third show we've done in Yuma. The first show we did there, we pulled probably about 150. But my understanding is we did that show before the big influx of snowbirds. And snowbirds start coming in about October. And so we did another show in October in their smaller theater, which only seats about 80. And we sold out those 80 tickets in about a week. So we were like, oh, we need to go back to the big theater. So we went back to the big theater. We spent ton of money on marketing and advertising and ended up getting close to 300. It'll be exciting to see what the final number was. We had so much fun. It was a great time. We probably went a little long. We've made that mistake before because we just get so involved, and Josh and I are having so much fun, and we sort of forget that, like, oh, these are old retired people and they want to be in bed by 8:30. So we started the show at 7 and we went till about 9. So we went about 2 hours. And it just kind of sort of felt there in that last half hour that, the energy was dropping. As soon as we finished, they like stood up and they just hit the door. We're like ready to get the heck out of there. So anyway, super great shows. Had so much fun. And then on Friday, I did 2 shows at JP's Comedy Club. Both shows went really, really well. Had, again, just a ton of fun. Even at the 9 o'clock. The 9 o'clock show was really light. And I don't know what it is, but there's been a handful of times at JP's Comedy Club where the 9 o'clock show will be really light. We're talking like 12, 15 people, which in a comedy club that seats 100, it almost feels vacant in there. But for some reason, those shows end up being the most fun. It's like those small 9 o'clock crowd, for some reason, like the audience they're like even more engaged. It's really interesting. And it's so much more intimate. You can almost like talk to everybody individually almost, like you can make eye contact with everybody on the audience. So it almost feels like you are having a one-to-one conversation. Whereas if it's packed, you're doing a one-to-many. So the audience becomes more of an amalgamation. It's almost like the audience is an archetype of one person. When you start to get, 20, 30, 50 people in a room, it feels more like a crowd. But when it's like 15 people, it does feel more sort of like just an intimate, get together, where you can talk to everybody. Not that you are talking to everybody, but anyway, it's just it's a different energy and it's a different feel. And I actually think that feel is actually what stand-up comedy is supposed to feel like. Like stand-up comedy is supposed to feel like you're just having a conversation with one person. Reminds me of this exercise that one of my stand-up comedy teachers in Los Angeles used to do, Steve North, who's been teaching stand-up comedy for like 1,000 years. And what he would have us do is, we would have our jokes or our routines or whatever that we were working on. But then he would say, all right, he would have somebody else in the class um, come sit down next to us in a chair. So we would sit down in a chair, and then there would be somebody sitting next to us. And then he would be like, all right, imagine you're on the bus with this person, and he's just a friend of yours, and have a conversation with him, but do your material. Like almost the same wording and everything. He's like, don't change up the joke structure at all, but deliver this joke like you're just talking to your friend while you're riding the subway going to work or whatever. And I remember doing that exercise, and it was really fascinating how different that felt, especially for me, because I have a tendency to overperform, because so much of my comedy is an overcompensation for insecurity, right? So I am, I, it's like I have to be performative to present a version of myself which I think will be accepted, which by like very definition is inauthentic. And I think people today, audiences are craving authenticity because, our entire world is full of performances and, and deceit and, news that is just totally curated for profit and, $100 million budgeted, movies that are just so produced down to the very millisecond that nothing you're looking at is even real, and it. It's like, yeah, Spider-Man isn't, actually, swinging in between, buildings in New York with a spider web. It's all in front of a gigantic blue screen. Elphaba isn't actually flying around on a broom. It's all produced and fabricated and CGI and green screen and editing and sound effects. And, so I think why stand-up comedy even exists is because it is the complete opposite of produced. It's just a human being and a microphone talking to you directly to the audience, and there's no special effects, and there's no green screen. It really is just a human being being authentic and sharing their experiences in a manner that elicits laughter. But what should elicit the laughter is the authenticity of the comedy, not the comedy itself. And that, I'm not gonna lie, that's a huge challenge for me. And I really had to do so much work to remove the production value of my own comedy, remove the performance, and as much as I can, just be authentic and have a conversation with the audience and not overperform it. And it is not easy. So I think why I like those small 9 p.m. crowds, there's 15 people, is I can't perform. The audience would see right through it that I'm performing, because it's almost like, you ever been in the room with somebody and they're not really in the room with you, or they're not talking with you, they're just kind of talking at you. It's like if you met a radio DJ, for lunch, and he's like, Hello, and thank you for coming to lunch with me. I see you've got the fries today. Tell me, why did you get the fries? Whoa, that is fascinating. Tell me, how is your wife?
It'd be like, dude, what the heck are you doing, right? And I think as as comedians, and I know especially for me as a comedian, I have a tendency to slip into that. Like when I'm on stage, it's like, "Hello, I am performing comedy. Who wants to laugh?" Um, and that really is the death of what comedy is supposed to be, in my humble opinion, which is it's supposed to be more authentic and just a conversation and just like, yeah, this is what I think, this is what I feel, um, and you know, here it is. And so again, there's something about those smaller crowds that really seems to it almost necessitates a more authentic comedic conversation with the audience. So then the challenge is to treat every crowd that authentically and just to treat every crowd like, oh, yeah, we're just having, a conversation. And, even last night in Yuma, there were 300 people in the audience, and I just went out and I just tried to talk to them and really tried not to get over performative, not get overproduced. Just have a conversation and share what I'm thinking and feeling. But I have a long way to go in that regard. So this is a do as I say, not as I do. Anyway, all right. Oh wow, I've already been talking 32 minutes. Time flies when you are blabbing about yourself. All right, everybody, that's all for today. Thank you so much for listening to the Paul Green Comedy Podcast for December 21st, 2024, episode 359. 6 more episodes to go before wrapping up this 1-year daily podcast series. And then we'll see. We'll see what format this takes moving forward. But I love you all so much. Thank you for listening. I hope you are having a wonderful holiday season. Hope your dreams are coming true. You're finding joy and fulfillment in your own individual journeys. I love you all so much. I will talk to you tomorrow.